Come on, Peter. There's your suit.
It's heartening to see so many strange new faces here today. I know my mom would be very touched and probably a little suspicious.
She wasn't altogether there at the end.
Mom?
I don't like this. Dad, I don't like this.
What's happening? Peter! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother! Mom, what's happening? Make it stop! Make it stop!
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
I feel like I'm always writing from a pretty personal place, but I also love genre. And so by being able to take that idea of a family being cursed and literalizing that, I was sort of able to take these more personal feelings and put them through a horror movie filter. Well, as a kid, I really loved horror films, and there were a few in particular that really traumatized me. Carrie was one that really bothered me. I couldn't really walk around in the dark without projecting like images from Carrie on the wall. And then there's a film by Peter Greenaway called The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, which is not designated a horror film, although it's so deeply upsetting. And there's like this certain level of artifice to his aesthetic that always bothered me. And it's a film that I end up showing people a lot before we make something, especially on this one, because we were dealing so much with artifice. Those two movies stayed with me for many, many years, and they really affected my life. So I wonder what it is that makes me want to do that as well.
Hereditary is about a lot of things. I think ultimately it's about inheriting family trauma. It's about what you take from your family or what's thrust upon you and how you deal with it. The narrative ultimately is about a family dealing with a lot of grief and the extremes to which they go. It's incredibly written, and I think Ari is so well prepared and so meticulous about all of his choices and what he wants. I mean, he had this film edited in his mind possibly 2 years ago. So it's been challenging in the best possible way.
For me, this was always a film that was a family drama first. So I wanted to make a film that was very firmly rooted in this very complicated family dynamic. And they go through these very horrible things, and over the course of the film, everything just sort of unravels into a nightmare.
I just want to die!
Horror films are much more upsetting and frightening if you are invested in the characters. It was always just very important to me that these were people that you cared about, so that when things happen to them, it's not just spectacle, but it feels like a betrayal.
You know, I had said to my agent, I don't want to do anything intense or heavy. I had done quite a bit of that, and I just wanted to do comedies and have fun. And then he sent this to me, and I was like, screw you. Because I love it. I love the story so much. I couldn't put it down. It is an incredibly textural, layered, complex family drama, which then will surprise you with where it goes.
I thought it was one of the coolest, most interesting and disturbing twisted scripts I'd ever read in my life, definitely. And one of the best young characters I'd ever seen. They had Tony on board, and it ended up with this really crazy thing where the school that I went to, the girl playing Charlie, Millie Shapiro, actually went to that school, so I knew her really well.
Well, I got the audition from my manager, and I've always wanted to be in a horror movie because I love watching horror movies. And so I got a call back, and I was really excited. And then after that, I got a director's meeting, so I got to meet Ari, and that was really cool. And then a couple weeks later, I heard I got the part.
She's just an amazing actress. She's such a good actress that it doesn't feel that Charlie is being played by anybody. It feels like we found Charlie. She actually won an honorary Tony for playing Matilda on Broadway when she was 10 years old. And we would do these very, very intense scenes, and then whenever I'd say cut, she would just sort of jump up and do one of these. It was, yeah, great.
My mother was a very secretive and private woman. She had private rituals, private friends, private anxieties. It honestly feels like a betrayal just to be standing here talking about her.
At the beginning of the story, we start at her mum's funeral. And you can tell by the way she's delivering the eulogy that there was kind of an interesting relationship that she might have had with her mother. Comes from her birth family is kind of plagued with psychological issues. So she met her husband Steve, played by Gabriel, when he was her psychiatrist. When they stopped working together, he continued to care for her and continued a deeper relationship.
Hey, how's it going?
Just working.
It's one of the most intense parts I've ever played.
Steve, please, I really, really need you to be open to this. Please, please, I promise. Both of you.
But I've never been challenged in this way.
Toni Collette is very capable of going extremely deep and then very impressively snapping right out of it between takes. She plays Annie as a very tortured woman with a very complicated past, and she's somebody who's really wrestling with that and is wrestling with her role as a mother and a wife, but also certainly as a daughter. And that's really like the heart of the film.
Charlie! I mean, what are you doing? Leaving the house barefoot? You some kind of idiot. You can't roam around with no shoes and no coat.
Charlie is a very interesting character. She's very distant from everyone. She doesn't connect with anyone. She likes to be alone, and that's when she feels most calm. And everyone thinks that she has something wrong with her. And so they're very cautious around her, and they don't really know how to treat her.
Well, the idea would be that Charlie is an artist and that she draws from her mother in that way, but also that Charlie and Annie are compulsive artists. It's something that they both need to do. It's clearly therapeutic for Annie. The figurines that Charlie makes are made of found objects, so she's reappropriating these things, which comes to take on greater significance as the film goes on.
She gets along with Peter the most because he kind of just like knows that she likes to be left alone, so he doesn't try as hard.
Everything's a little bit like the characters. I think we all sort of molded into what the characters' relationships were, or at least I did. I don't know, I think it's a little easier if you keep it to some degree like the relationship in the movie, because then you don't have to completely jump back and forth.
Alex is amazing, and he's a method actor, and so he just gives himself over completely to the part. I didn't talk to him as Alex from the first day of shooting to the last.
And you'll be asleep from set. Thank you, Peter.
Roll it up. And on the last day of shooting, he introduced himself to the whole crew as Alex for the first time. It was like a dangerous level of commitment.
I read the script, so I knew that it was requiring a lot. I just didn't understand what it would do to your psyche or whatever. It makes it easier to have Ari. The reason I can do it is because of Ari and because of just having these people who are encouraging you and are saying it's okay to go there.
Please stop!
To have a place where you can go and be as crazy and broken and upset as you want, because it's the highest circumstance of grief. Peter's relationship with Steve is much more civil and sweet. I think they have an understanding with each other. So I think he looks to Steve as his best person, but really I think Peter feels a little alone in the wilderness.
The base or the structure of the story isn't horror. The structure is based on a reality, and it's extremely cleverly written. And then filmmaking is a collaborative medium, as you know, and actors and director bring their particular perspectives to the script, and it alters and builds. But without a strong script, there's nothing. You came to care about this family through the build-up of their relationship. So that by the time the film begins to turn, you're already invested emotionally in this family.
I'm Joan. Hi. Are you doing better?
Ann Dowd plays Joan, who steps into the film as this sort of much-needed source of compassion. Ann Dowd is naturally just one of the warmest people, and she was able to find in Joan that maternal warmth, but then she was also excessive about it, and obviously where the film goes, it's, you know, there's something deeply Machiavellian about her character, and was just very exciting to watch, even just as a physical actress, just the way that she invades Annie's space and just sort of is constantly touching her in a way that's both sorely needed by Annie and also laced with red flags.
I think sometimes when you work on something so kind of heavy and intense, you have to balance it out with a little bit of levity on set. So it's fun, and sometimes it has to be so hyper focused because the story demands it. And that's great to be able to work in that kind of environment where everyone's so respectful of what's going on.
Rolling. Mark. Action.
Who's gonna take care of me?
Excuse me, you don't think I'm gonna take care of you? Today we're shooting a scene. I'm shooting a scene with Millie Shapiro, who plays my young daughter, who's not a great communicator or doesn't communicate in the way I would like her to. And so I'm kind of trying too hard, trying to comfort her after her grandmother's funeral, to whom she was very close.
It's really fun working with Ari and the rest of the cast, because Ari really helped me figure out the character so that when we started filming, it'd be really easy for me and it wouldn't be me just searching around in the dark trying to figure things out on my own. And the other actors are very experienced in film, so it's very nice for me because they're welcoming me into this world that I've never been in before very kindly and helping me figure things out, which I find really cool.
There's a scene where my character has a nightmare. At first it feels even more nightmarish because at first you can't tell if it's a nightmare or not. It feels quite realistic, but then it definitely becomes a nightmare. And the moment you really realise it's a nightmare is when both Peter and Annie are completely drenched in paint thinner. So in between takes, you know, people are coming in and literally just pouring water all over us while we're fully dressed. And it's a moment which is like very emotionally charged, and so it was a funny combination. And it's just, I'm doing things in this movie that I've never done before, so that in itself is always exciting when you go to work, right?
My scene today was me just sleeping in the beginning of the movie, and I'm just sleeping, and Gabriel's coming to wake me up, and I got to just hang out in bed and sleep, and it was so lovely. It was amazing. So I got to do that today, and we joked, Ari said, hey, you have a light day today, you just have to look at your sister's head roll off towards you and turn into a Nerf ball, and then a demon grabs your head and tries to pull it off your neck, but that's a light day for you. And it is. It honestly, that was a light day.
So far, the most memorable experience for me was when I did my stunt, because I had to hang out of a car, and it was really cool because I had like a tether attaching me to the car, and I was hanging out of the car while I was going like 30 miles an hour. And so that was really fun for me because I had never done a stunt before, and it kind of felt like a roller coaster, and I love roller coasters and I love acting, so they're combined together in that moment, and that was really fun for me.
Ari honestly is such an original filmmaker. He has such a clear vision. The story is so unique and so unusual. Even the camera work, it's like the camera Olympics. It's just so beautifully shot, unusually shot, but not in a divisive way that will take you out of the movie. It all serves the story.
Pavel Pogorzelski is the director of photography, and he and I went to AFI together. We have this great shorthand where we just absolutely understand each other's taste and sense of aesthetics. And the way we worked on this was that I developed the shot list, which includes, you know, the blocking of the actors in relation to the camera, and then we worked with Grace Yuen, the production designer, basically mapping out every scene to see, okay, what do we need from these spaces before we end up building them?
We immediately started doing sketches and talking about the bigger points like the treehouse scene towards the end and how that can be, you know, the starting point of developing motif for a concept that is a through line throughout the film.
We were scouting for a long time in Utah. We were scouting actually in Salt Lake City, and we found a few houses that, you know, met some requirements, but we had realized that to use any of those locations would have been more expensive than to build everything because we needed to remodel the house, essentially. And so we decided that we were going to build the entire house. So every interior you see at that house was built from scratch. On a stage, but the challenge was that we needed to replicate everything in miniature form.
One of the main hero pieces is a miniature version of the Graham house. I was simultaneously designing the build of the Graham house and then also designing the miniature of the Graham house, which needs to function in a certain way, the way, you know, it's shot listed. It was just information gathering, communicating with the miniaturist so that he has enough time and everything that he needs.
So we had this guy, Steve Newburn, this really great artist in Toronto, creating miniature replicas of everything that we were building. So there were really two builds that needed to be overseen.
You still toiling away at the hospice?
Yeah, between this and the preschool.
The miniatures were preschool miniature. There is a hospice miniature. Then we have downstairs, in the downstairs hallway, or the foyer, we have older miniatures from Annie's last show.
Ari is very invested in the visual aspects of the film, the design of the film. There's a lot of custom pieces, a lot of prop fabrication, and also I did a bunch of research on Paimon, one of the main demon for the cult that's in this film. Did research on pagan rituals and just developing what the cult side of things, what that would look like, and drew from Utah in a way. Originally, the script was written to be like a snowy landscape in the mountains, but due to the time period, everything is happening in spring and summer, so it was this idea of embracing the green, embracing this like lush landscape, and how green and spring is kind of the awakening of this cult that's happening.
The score was composed by Colin Stetson, who's a brilliant avant-garde saxophonist, but he's also produced all of these incredible solo albums. I was listening to a lot of Colin Stetson while I was writing the script, to the point that his albums felt inextricable from what I was writing. I sent him the coronation theme, Zadok the Priest, which is this very ecstatic, exultant music, and so that was used as temp. Once we found that tone, Colin sent that in, and it was like, okay, yeah, that's exciting. Haven't really heard anything like that in a horror film before.
I think that Ari is the real deal. I think he is using the horror convention to make points about family, about connection, about love, about fear.
I think it's an exciting film because a lot of it is so unexpected. People ultimately want something new. They want to be surprised. They want to be moved. And it is incredibly moving and incredibly surprising. This is just very pure and very, just unusually honest.
I wanted to make a film that stays with people and that haunts people. I'm hoping that, you know, a lot of the feelings that are wrought in the film, that they hang in the air for a while after people leave, and it's not something that they can just immediately